here. I'm physically here, but I'm mentally waiting for this app to catch up to me so I can order my dinner. Also, this is a real fun thing I did where I sort of like copy pasted a bunch of shit into my notes to then later go through and read and make sense of, and then I didn't have time to do that. So I've literally not read any of my research.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh, well, at least I watched that episode of Ghost Hunters that applies to this. And then I only watched half of it and I went to finish it and I got removed from Dailymotion.
Oh no.
So the world's really just setting me up for a lot of surprises today. I just wanted to let you know that's where we're at today.
All right. It's fine. It's fine. Like I read through my notes, so I feel pretty good about it, I think. Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. Oh god. I can't even complain about like how today's been, because today I had an actual day off yesterday and like I had no social commitments.
A what?
I know.
A doff?
A doff.
What's a doff? Die off. What is that?
What is that? I got clothes, laundry that has been overflowing. I got that put away and I was just like, oh my god. I feel like, isn't it nice when you finally get like something that is just like, this should not, like you put it off forever because you're like, I just don't have like the time or the energy or et cetera, and then you do it and you're like, oh, that didn't take as long as I thought it would, but now it's so much nicer.
Can't say that I can relate to that. I'm still in the like, everything's gonna get done later at some point stage of that.
Laundry is my, again, like I was watching a video and it was talking about like how millennials hate putting their clothes away, and I was like, god damn it, I hate and then I showed it to our female coworker and she laughed. She's like, why are they calling us out so bad? I said, I don't know. And I said, but it's true. And I'm like, washing clothes, no problem. Immediately putting them in the dryer, no problem. Taking them out of the dryer and putting them in a basket, yeah, okay, I can do that. Actually putting the basket away, nope, you're looking 7 to 10 to longer business days. My husband's just like, Beth, at what point does this get put away? And I'm like, I don't feel good. So obviously between this time and last time we recorded, I'm on the other half or the other side of the sinus infection. I was at the beginning and now I'm at the end, which is nice. And the way our things are spaced out, everyone's gonna be like, Beth's been sick for like ever.
Like when you were talking about, oh, my scabs fell off, and everyone was like, oh my god, it took like 3 months for her scabs. Yeah. Is she okay? And I was like, well, all right. First of all,
time is an illusion on this
Time
podcast.
is a construct. It's not real.
Yeah. So, yeah.
If we all just collectively stop agreeing to follow this bullshit time that we've made up, it ends. And we are no longer its prisoner.
That's
so
true.
Really, this is all of your faults because I'm already operating outside the realm of time and space.
Oh.
I am a victim of physics, but that is it.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
All right. I still have gotten no further with that, so I guess I'm just not eating dinner tonight.
No.
All right.
So, welcome to the Lake Erie Library, and yeah, we're surviving, not quite thriving.
I took a drink of my Celsius, and now it looks like I peed myself because it spilled on my leg.
Oh god.
No, I'll wash that off when we take a break. Maybe.
It's fine.
If my soup brain remembers.
Look, the thing I got going for me today is I saw this ghost t-shirt and I was like, I have to have it. And I have realized that what I've been into lately, because we're still celebrating, I guess, romance or whatever, is in my head, I don't have time to make playlists. I used to make a lot of playlists for stuff, and I'll be honest, I do everything the free way, so I don't have Spotify or anything like that. So I was really into iTunes, and I had so many playlists for my iPod. Yes, that's right. I used an iPod for a really, really long time. I still have it, but I can't get it to charge well, so it just dies. But yeah, I was like really into making playlists. So in my mind, I try to make playlists mentally of like, yeah. So I was like, oh, yes, targeted advertising, which by the way, Facebook put on my thing, a thing for better today, and I was like, stop it.
This episode has been brought to you by BetterHelp. Sponsor us so that we can go to therapy.
But yeah, like I got the targeted Instagram ad, and I was like, all right, I'll take a crack at it. What kind of t-shirts you got going on, Ghost? Because I think actually the day I ordered this was the day that my tater tot threw up on my other Ghost t-shirt. So I was like, I'm not saying it's a sign, but maybe it's a sign. And
is this like, like in some cultures, like I think in a lot of Asian cultures, they'll put like a pen and money and like something else, and they like have the baby crawl towards it to like figure out what's their
first year.
Yeah. Except yours is like, what should I buy myself as a little treat? Whatever my kid pukes on. You start pointing him towards like new car ads.
God. Listen, this time around was so scary. It came on so well, not really suddenly. I'm not entirely sure. The tater tot started out with a cough, and I was like, and then I immediately, I don't know what clicked in my like my mom lizard brain. I was like, oh no, this is not a cough. This is a precursor to, yeah. So I went to my husband. I was like, go, get a trash can, hurry. So husband yeeted son out of my arm very fast. This all happened very fast with like within 10 seconds. And then all of a sudden it was like perfect timing, because it was just, and then it was very violent. And then I went to pick up the tater tot, and then I thought they were done.
The second round.
Yeah, I got the second round.
Yeah, you always gotta wait.
I just felt so bad. They, having a stomach bug within the past 6 months and stuff like that, I'm like, man, buddy, I get it. Like, it's traumatizing to puke, especially if you have violent puking, which is all tater tots do.
Yeah, I feel like all puking is violent, though. It's like, it doesn't matter what's happening. It's things forcefully being expelled from your body.
I hate...
And not in a fun way, like farts. Like, farts are like gas being forcefully expelled from your body.
I just hate the build-up waiting for it. I would rather it happen all of a sudden and then be done and be like, okay, I'm done, than I'm so nauseated, I think I have to puke. And then like mentally doing that with your brain, like, am I going to? Am I not going? I'm not going to. I'm not. And like then denying it. And then like you just keep feeling it getting worse and worse and worse. I hate that. I'm like, no, get it done and over with. Let's go.
Yeah, I won't delve any further into the idea of vomiting, because I'm sure there's somebody who's like, fuck these people, and already turned this podcast off.
Like you.
So, but
anyways,
I getcha.
back to my treats. So in my playlist, so saw this shirt, and then I was like, does Ghost have any like love songs? And then I was like, oh, all right, Google, that's fair. I would consider that song like. So I've been listening to like Darkness in the Heart of My Love like nonstop, and then I was like, this has notes of like, and I'm sure there's like people who are really into lyrics and stuff who are going to tell me I'm misinterpreting them, but like poetry, it's all up to the individual what they get out of it. Like, it's okay. But so there's like some religious undertones in there and stuff, but I'm like, just from the chorus and stuff like that, this sounds like a vampire who's like leading you into temptation type of thing. Like, I will like literally do stuff for you and like make whatever, like make you happy. And then I'm like, could I just make like a vampire inspired Valentine's playlist? And then I thought of Twilight, and then it just got off the rails from there. That was where my brain went. So that's where my headspace has been for the past week.
I found a playlist on Spotify called 90s Lesbian Road Trip, and that's what I've been listening to lately. It is a good playlist.
I'm sure it is.
It's like Melissa Etheridge,
Yes.
10,000 Maniacs,
Okay.
Katie Lang, Sheryl Crow, like
all what I would all what I would expect for a road trip.
Yeah. You made me think, because you're talking about love songs, and like my current, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's like a favorite love song, but I've been listening to a lot, mostly because it's on our house playlist before my show opens. But Old Lady by Sinead O'Connor.
Oh.
Do you know this song?
I don't know that song.
It's yeah. I consider it a love song. That's probably the closest I've got to it, because I'm very like poo-poo on love right now.
Right.
As I always am. I've never had like a good Valentine's Day.
Aww.
I'm very rarely in a relationship on Valentine's Day, and every time I have been, like, my partner has just been like, meh. Like, I think I got like a shitty like Hallmark card in a fucking Panera from one of them, and then the other one was like, it was like, that was probably the best of them. But then, like, his dog tore his fucking ACL playing with his other dog outside and came in limping, and it, like, ruined the night.
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about. Gotcha.
That's it. Those are the Valentine's Days I've had in relationships. So, it just sucks. And then it's, like, a week before my birthday, and I don't really like my birthday either. So, I'm just like, nah, check in with me in, like, June.
I've been with my husband for so long that we don't really do a whole lot for Valentine's Day, because we're just like, we have our dating anniversary. We are married now, so we have our marriage anniversary. And I was like, that's honestly enough. Like, we don't even get each other gifts anymore for those, because it's just like we don't need to do that. I do like cards though, so I did tell my husband, I said, I just want a card. I'm like, I don't need flowers, I don't need chocolate, like, just a card to acknowledge our Valentine's.
At this point, I would take a fucking text message, Beth. I am so starved for affection and attention. Like, I keep saying I've been watching Doctor Who, and by watching Doctor Who, I mean I put it on and immediately fall asleep, because I have no time to watch things. And Buddy the Elf was just like, oh, but like, the doctor's so nice. I was like, yeah, he's a war criminal, but thanks for acknowledging that. But I agree, sure would be terrible if an alien war criminal with a stolen, broken spaceship and 2 hearts came and took me away from all of this.
It would make for a very good story on the podcast.
Stand in a field banging pots next to a bunch of cows in the middle of the night. Like, sure would be a shame if a police box landed next to me.
Oh, God. That's actually not a bad segue. I'm going to hop off on that.
Okay.
Speaking of aliens, again, hello, the Lake Erie Library. And today we are going to talk about, this is, just as a preface, I don't want anybody to, well, I'm sure between the puking and the Valentine's Day rhetoric, they're just like, oh God, what is happening with Beth and Britta today? But I don't want them to think we're too like, woo woo, witch in the woods, or the truth
Beth,
is out there.
We have a podcast about paranormal shit.
That's true.
I don't know why you're so worried about. Beth came to me and was like, how woo woo are we getting with this? And I was like, the whole point is aliens. That's the whole point. The whole point is fucking aliens. I'm that guy. It's aliens. Like the GIF from ancient, like, what else are we gonna do? Just give you the facts? Boring.
So today we are going to talk about Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Right, Pat.
And for those of you who don't know, this is a pretty famous Air Force base very close to Dayton, Ohio. It's actually also very close to Fairborn, which is also close to Dayton. Which, shout out to Fairborn. That's like one of my favorite like places to go in the fall, because they have that like downtown that's all like Halloween stuff, which is really, really cool. Foys, I enjoy going to you. But after that small aside, yeah. So today we're going to talk about Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and we're going to discuss just kind of what it's made up of and some of the rumors and stuff like that that started there, or maybe aren't rumors. But, you know, I guess I just want to start with the fact first that there's scientists out alive today that are like, yeah, aliens totally exist. I don't want to name the one that like I can think of like off the top of my head, because he's gross now and I'm like sad, but I'm also like, I always kind of knew you were gross because...
Are you talking about my guy Neil?
Yeah. I mean, Stephen Hawking. There's so many like prominent scientists who are like, we would just be like statistically like so selfish and full of ourselves to not think that, you know, there's Earth-like planets out in other galaxies and stuff like that. And we are discovering that there are Earth-like planets. And so by that, if we follow the theory of evolution, like there has to be other life, and it might be similar to us. It might be hostile, might have aliens walking among us, but most likely they're sending like robots and stuff to feel out like, what's this planet like? Oh, real dumpster fire. We're just gonna get away from that.
For sure, we are like the like, I truly feel in my heart that any extraterrestrial beings look at humanity on Earth and go like, ew, like we do to like fucking colonies of ants and shit. Like, I think that we are the lesser evolved beings that make a goddamn mess out of everything, and they're just like, ugh, I don't have time to deal with that right now. So like maybe they just like, you know, I don't know, maybe the global warming is there like, I'm gonna just spray Raid on it and I'll check later.
God. So yeah, like let's start out with like just that basis of theory and whatnot, and then I think we can work back from there.
Well, like I said, I haven't read these notes, so they're not really in any kind of order, so I'm working left and right, up and down, diagonal, four corners, whatever.
So anyways, as I said, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is just east of Dayton, Ohio. It includes both Wright and Patterson fields, which were originally Wilbur Wright, one of the Wright brothers, and Fairfield Aviation General Supply Depot. The Patterson field is approximately 10 miles northeast of Dayton. Wright Field is approximately 5 miles northeast of Dayton. This Air Force Base has been around since 1917. It was heavily, like, kind of utilized during World War II. It also hosts a museum. So if you're, like, an aviation buff, which, you know, down in Dayton, that kind of makes sense because that's where the Wright brothers are from.
Or if you're a military
family, yeah.
This is the National Museum of the Air Force.
Yeah. This is a cool place to go to. They have a lot. They have planes there that have literally, like, no civilians have seen. Like, they're military planes. They also have the plane that JFK flew on from Washington to Dallas and consequently flew back from, not alive. There are some people that say that's a little haunted, a little spooky. Take that with what you will. We're talking about aliens today, so I don't know if you're like, aliens, ghosts, both, amazing. So yeah, you can go visit that. That's open.
Now I'm just thinking of Stefan from Saturday Night. This Air Force Base is the hottest spot this season. It's got everything. Aliens, anal probes, haunted planes, ghosts, guys in military uniforms.
This military base, it's also it's like family dwellings too. Like they
Yes.
have over 1,000. They have like 2,000 homes for military families, and most of these families have, majority of them have kids under the age of like 18 living there. So like they're very much like, this is an active military base. They've had over 20,000 personnel hired there throughout the years, and it expanded from the size it originally started as, and it started with an 84-acre plot for experimental test flights for the Wright Flyer 3. It was one of the first Air Force bases that had like actual runways for planes to take off. And this Air Force base is also big enough that like there are buildings and underground bunkers that could literally house like a whole football stadium of like a marching band, and you would never know. Like that is how big this is. When they expanded, they added I'm looking for the number because it's hectares.
Fine. I just cut all of that empty space out.
So after World War II, when you get into the Cold War, they expanded this Air Force field into 188 hectares, which for those of you who are like, I don't know what that is, that's 465 acres. So if you're like my co-host and I, and you're not really like a country mouse, you might not know what an acre is, but it's a lot. I think for a typical like suburban dwelling, like an acre is a nice chunk of land.
Yeah.
So just imagine 465 acres. I'm like, good God. So they expanded 465 acres. After that, they have continued testing like new things, and they've had some actually, like if you go to their Wikipedia page, they just have literally the things they do there. It's just like a whole page list, like, and it's in tiny font. Like they do a lot there. They do a lot of research there. They do a lot of experimenting with like government planes and stuff like that. And then on top of that, they have like families living there. So this is a very active military base. You can visit there, but really just the museum. And you have to have like clearance and stuff, right?
The Arnold House as well, or is that closed off?
That I don't know.
Okay. I know it is like a historic site that's on the property, but yeah, it's like the museum. Hold on, I have one that's open. So I'm assuming this is for the museum. I didn't write it down. It's open 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. This says free admission.
That's what I've read.
And then it's the address is just on the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, but 7 days a week for a museum. Interesting.
Well, it's a military museum, right? Like they probably have, I mean, when you're in the military, you're working 7 days a week, right? I don't know. I
depends on what your job is.
My grandpa was in the Air Force, but no longer with us and hasn't been for a long time. So
my dad was also in the Air Force, but he was out by the time I was born.
So I don't know, but I guess that makes sense to me because I'm like, you would always have somebody on duty, so why not have them work at the museum? But
yeah, okay, let's spend our military budget to run a fucking museum. Thanks, America. Let's give you some more money. We don't give you enough.
So yeah, so that seems kosher, right? All that sounds okay. Oh, at the museum you can also visit like early Wright brother models of airplanes, which is like, especially if you're into Ohio history, that's a pretty big deal. But all of that seems kosher, minus the fact that this military branch is also not military branch. This military base is also caught up in some like paranormal, the truth is out there type of stuff. Like I don't know how else to, like, when you say aliens, most people will say like Roswell, right? Like that's what you think of, but you should also think of this military base. You should think of Wright-Patterson.
The Roswell aliens are there.
Yes. So yeah, we're gonna first talk about like the things that have been heard. You know, it's not that long ago if we're talking about just like how the military is with like talking about aliens. Like they just came out this past year with declassified information, and
God, they like really they slipped it out like in the midst of so many other things too. Like now's our moment. It's gonna get lost. No one's gonna ask us questions.
yeah,
And they were completely right. Because at that point we're like, first of all, I know. Second of all, we're all gonna die anyway. So like what's the point in getting worried about this right now?
right. I can't even remember what all was happening, but there was a lot happening. So yeah, like we know that congressionally, like they had a special committee. You
I
had
just know you're gonna be able to use this rapper. I'm just gonna do it.
they had a former Air Force person who's like a whistleblower who like went on record and was like, yeah, there are aliens. We have seen them. They no longer called UFOs, which I feel like everybody knows what a UFO is, but that's an unidentified flying object. They're no longer called that. They're called UAPs, which I don't like as much. I don't know why, but I think it's just because I grew up with the word UFO.
Mm-hmm.
But UAPs, which is, God, now I gotta look up what that means. It is unidentified anomalous phenomena, which I guess sounds cooler when you say it as like a full thing instead of UAPs, but
I feel like it's more encompassing because unidentified flying object is like I could throw a banana and you didn't see what it was, and that's a UFO.
that's true.
But anomalous phenomena is like a broader, like, oh, like I saw it wasn't like a shape or like a vehicle, but I saw something in the sky and I didn't know what it was.
Right now I'm just thinking about Nope.
Yeah.
I saw a cloud that wasn't a cloud, and it was terrifying.
And it had a bunch of flags hanging out of its cloud butt.
So terrifying. So yeah, they've been caught up with this stuff for a long time. The military just went on and like declassified some of this information, and of course, we will be talking about in a later episode kind of the nitty gritty of Project Blue Book, which was based and headquartered at Wright-Pat. So before we dive into all that, we will talk about the things that like people have heard about Wright-Patterson and just what people have said as like former military members, because that's honestly like what I've read. I guess where do you want to start with the aliens?
I don't know. All my shit is very generically broken down. So, wherever, I will follow your lead.
Okay. So yeah, so as I said, Wright-Pat is so big that they, with it being so big that they literally could have an underground bunker of like a whole thing of stuff that you would not know about. You know, there have been a lot of things in pop culture talking about like, there's rumors of something called a Hangar 18. I will go on and say that Hangar 18 does not exist. Building 18 at Wright-Pat does, however. And the rumors that persist is that it is in this hangar that we have evidence of UFOs and kind of incident reports from Roswell. So for those of you who don't know, we'll back up and we'll talk about Roswell for a minute.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Okay. Like July 1947.
So post World War II.
Yeah. Near Roswell, New Mexico. So it was like west of Roswell and like northeast of Corona. So like very remote still area. There was a thunderstorm and something crashed, and so this is like the urban legend of it. It was a flying saucer, and military personnel from the Roswell Army Air Force Base went and cleaned up the crash site and took the vehicle and any beings or entities found inside of it. Roswell has always had this like reputation of being a like super secret location because that's where they were like testing atom bombs. So there was like always sort of hush hush high level clearance things happening there. So in addition to people saying that they saw this flying saucer UFO crash, there are unconfirmed eyewitness accounts saying that 4 gray-skinned alien bodies, which were dead space aliens, that were only about 3 feet tall, were also recovered from the crash. Which, like, if you watched X-Files, which we've talked about, like, half the, like, E.B.Es and stuff that Mulder was, like, finding were always, like, tied to Roswell.
And if you watch Twin Peaks, also tied to well, not Roswell, but Project Blue Book, and Dave Duchovny's also in that.
Right. So then the story goes that they took the remains of the crashed spaceship and the 4 beings to this Hangar 18 at Wright-Patterson in Dayton, Ohio. Senator Goldwater, who was like the Arizona senator at that time, he was a brigadier general in the U.S. Air Force. And he asked General Curtis LeMay, like, hey, can I get inside that Hangar 18 and take a look at this stuff? And LeMay replied, not only can't you get into it, but don't you ever mention it to me again.
I'm like, what? Goldwater, what did you do to piss off so many people about the aliens?
I just also kind of feel like maybe it was like, like if all the time I had been like, I don't know, like let's say, now I'm going to start rumors. This is not true. I'm just hypothetically saying this. But let's say that you were like, everyone was just like, oh my God, Beth, are you pregnant again? Are you pregnant again? Oh my God, I think Beth's pregnant again. Is Beth pregnant again? And then I came in and I was just like, hey, you're eating pickles and chocolate pudding? What, are you pregnant? You'd be like, shut the fuck up and stop saying that. So, like, I feel like maybe it's like everyone keeps asking me about this thing that doesn't fucking exist. You idiot. Just leave me alone.
Yeah, I can see that now. Same vibe. Yeah, he's like the unfortunate person that, like, is asking the right thing at the wrong time.
Right. So I love this story that's on Cryptomundo. They say, well, skeptics are hard on the story of Roswell and the Greys, as they refer to those extraterrestrial beings at Hangar 18. What we do know is that Dayton, Ohio's Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, may not house aliens, but for certain it does contain wonderful archives and alleged outer space pancakes. On April 18th, 1961, Joe Simonton was having a late breakfast at 11 a.m. when some low jet-like noises disturbed him, and he went outside. Seeing a disc land, hatch open, and a non-threatening being get out, Joe saw the visitors didn't speak English, and all communication took place in the form of gestures. But also, according to Joe, he apparently telepathically picked up a message to get some water and a jug for the entity. Then, according to the Air Force report, looking into the saucer, he saw a man cooking on some kind of flameless cooking appliance. They were fixing what Joe took to be pancakes. These humanoids in a silver craft landed in Eagle River, Wisconsin. Apparently, in trade for the water, they gave Joe Simonton 4 pancakes. Each one was about 3 inches in diameter and had little holes throughout the surface. He ate one and said it tasted like cardboard.
Oh, no.
And this is like in records tied to the stuff at like Hangar 18.
Good Lord.
Space pancakes.
Space pancakes, which apparently are not good.
Well, they didn't have water,
Yeah,
Beth.
that's true. They sound a lot like gluten-free pancakes,
like,
which if you've ever had the frozen gluten-free ones, those are unfortunate.
Oh.
The gluten-free waffles, good. Gluten-free pancakes, I'm like, I don't know what you guys
Are these
did.
like Vans brand?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, I don't know what happened.
That's sad.
But I don't like this. So, yes, for those of you who live a dairy-free lifestyle, the waffles, delicious. The pancakes, very questionable.
Yeah.
And do taste like cardboard.
All right. Good to know.
Yeah, so having done programs about like Ohio and stuff, I remember the first time I was reading about this, and one of the books I got from our local library system is actually, it was a self-published, so you gotta take it with a grain of salt, check your sources, but it was a self-published book about Wright-Pat from a former employee who was like, I don't work there anymore, I don't care. And they were talking about how sad it was that they claimed that one of the extraterrestrials was alive during the Roswell incident, and that they experimented on the alien, and they inevitably killed the alien by experimenting on it.
Again, just spray us with Raid and get rid of us because we suck.
And they were like sad about that like we killed this living creature. And then they said that they were in Wright-Pat, and that they were like in this like building 18. So yeah, it's just interesting to read. And in that one, they said there were 5 instead of 4. So I don't know if like the 5th one was the alive one. And then like they're like, there were only 4 because we experimented on this 5th one. We don't want you to know that.
Right.
But,
apparently they had one of the space pancakes at Wright-Patterson in an exhibit.
Oh.
It was an exhibit devoted to the 1950s flying saucer contactees. And it was a single piece of pancake stapled with a single staple to a piece of white cardboard behind plate glass.
How it lasted that long is impressive.
Well, they said it had like a bunch of holes in it, like it was drying out. So I don't know.
Yeah. So this is, again, it's 11.8 square miles, and like how big it is. So it's huge.
Right.
So they are saying not only do they host kind of stuff from the Roswell incident, but they also hosted stuff from Project Blue Book. And inevitably, one of the newer things I read about Wright-Pat, so this guy from the Atlantic, which, so this guy from the Atlantic, he wrote, Garrett M. Graff, he wrote that his hypothesis, which he wrote a book, and it's called UFO, the inside story of the U.S. government's search for alien life here and out there. He wrote that the conspiracy is not the fact that there are aliens or there's not, that the real government conspiracy is that we do so much military testing and development, and how we get this technology is, I guess, a moot point in his mind, but it's the fact that we do so much military testing and we don't tell civilians is like the true government like conspiracy or cover up. It's not whether the fact of aliens exist or that flying saucers exist or anything like that. It's the fact that we turn around and we like cover up that we're gonna test stuff. And I think that's really fair, because like, especially when we're talking about like World War II and kind of the atomic bomb, like the reason why Roswell was so like secretive is because that's where they were testing stuff. And like, we know that out west they have like nuclear waste just in places. And it's just like, if you were to ever move out west, like, is that sectioned off? Like, would you know that like that's sectioned off? Or are you gonna like make a house on top of a nuclear waste site?
Right. It always makes me think, was it like all those shows from around that time always dealt with like people being out in like the desert, and it's like, oh no, I found uranium.
Yes. And on top of that, Ohio, so just as a small aside, Ohio has also had its very fair share of UFO sightings. Where
they're probably coming to get the fucking space pancakes we stole from their ancestors, like, or time's a construct. Maybe it's just literally like they've been gone for 5 minutes and they're like, where is Gary? Oh my God, why is he in this weird human bunker? He was just supposed to go get water to make pancakes and he never came back.
God.
My dad left to get water for space pancakes and cigarettes, and that was 25 years ago.
Oh, that so actually that book I will have to like look up, and by the time this gets like figure out what the title was so that people can read it.
We'll put it in like the show notes or something.
Yeah. But they also mentioned that there were different types of aliens, and like so the gray aliens were nice and friendly, but then there's like tall brown aliens which are like racist. Which they said they were not friendly to humans, and that like they were like ones that you were like, oh, we shoot those on sight.
This sounds
really
like
racist now.
The KKK was just like, hey, tell them that they're aliens. Tell them that they're aliens so that I can shoot them. God, that sounds super racist propaganda.
I know. I wish I wouldn't have said it now, but I'm just repeating what I read.
I know. That's what we're here for, to point out how racist it is.
Well, it was also the 1950s, so I'm not surprised. But yeah, another thing that I wanted to point out is, again, Ohio and UFO sightings. We rank pretty high up there for UFO sightings. We have...
Also, connecting this in my brain, we have a shit ton of astronauts.
Mm-hmm.
Again, what are you doing in space, astronauts? Are you doing things you shouldn't do and the aliens are coming back for you?
I'm just thinking now.
Are you little half human alien hybrid babies? Because astronauts can't keep it in their frickin' spacesuit?
I'm just thinking right now of like the astronaut's wife, and how much that movie terrified me.
Good movie.
It terrified me as a kid.
Johnny Depp, but Charlize Theron.
I remember because like I think I had seen him in other movies, so like to see him as like, you know, I'm an astronaut, I'm like a good guy, but I'm not.
So she was also in Devil's Advocate, wasn't she?
I think
and
so.
They came out roughly around the same time, and so I always used to get them very confused. I'm like, wait, which one is Satan and which one is aliens? Crap.
Two totally different premises.
Same story, two different scary things.
So yeah, in some of my notes I've had that we rank number 8 in terms of states for and then I've read number 4. So I think it just probably depends year to year. But we're still in the top 10 for UFO sightings, and along Lake Erie is where we get the most predominantly. Usually, from what I've read, it's lights. We see a lot of strange lights.
Were you working the one night? I mean, this was like several years ago at this point, but there was a night at our library, and it was like dark out, but it was before we closed. And there was some weird light, like, way out over the lake. And, like, there were probably, like, 20 or 30 people standing in the backyard with, like, binoculars trying to figure out what it... Were you there that night?
I wasn't, but that also does not surprise me because, again, on the local community page, that's, like...
Everyone kept coming in and being like, hey, do you know what that light is? Is it, like, can you look up on the internet? And I was like, there's literally nothing. You're the 40th person who's asked me.
Yeah.
And I had to go get, like, our binoculars to, like, go outside and see if I could figure out what it was. And we were like, is it like a barge that's, like, hauling something, but it wasn't moving? And we're like, well, I don't know. Maybe there's, like, a search going on, but like normally they like go in for a search right next to us because there's a boat launch, and like I don't know, it was very strange, and it was like a green light out over the lake, which made it even weirder. And I was like, there's too much cloud cover in Northeast Ohio for that to be like Canada. So
we from where we're at on the lake, we cannot see Canada. We're too far away. You know, one of our really regular patrons actually made the news for spotting a UFO in the city nearby.
I'm not surprised.
I think you know who I'm talking about.
I don't.
Yeah.
Again, that tracks. I'm not gonna lie, Beth. That patron might be an alien. You're undercover.
So yeah, like, and we also in the Northeast Ohio area, there's also the Cleveland Ufology Project, or CUPS for short. We really love all of our acronyms. Like, bro, Britta again, and that was not intentional.
Oh, God.
Oh boy.
We love acronyms so much, but we suck at them so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do we need a name that's gonna lend legitimacy to this? Cups.
Sometimes I don't know if they try to make it, they don't make it around the acronym, right? Like, that would be silly. But anyways, they're a pretty good, like, they're a cool website to check out. If you go on their website, which is, I think, just if you search Cleveland Ufology Project, they have like a running kind of tally of UFO sightings in the Northeast Ohio area. And they are pretty significant because they are one of the oldest and most organized groups in the United States, which is impressive, I think.
Do they keep the Cups archive in the cabinet?
Oh. I don't know where they keep their archive, actually.
All right.
But yeah, so if you guys are into UFOs and if you're into kind of looking into this stuff, especially in the Ohio area, I would recommend checking out their website because you can see kind of what people have been spotting. But usually, from what I remember looking at, and it's been a while since I've looked at it, they see a lot of lights. But I will tell you a kind of significant one that happened not super near Wright-Pat, but the archive of it is kept in Wright-Pat, is in Portage County in 1966. There were 2 police officers who saw a flying saucer and at 5 a.m. and they were checking out an abandoned vehicle and they saw a large metallic disc object in the sky nearby. The object hovered. The object hovered but moved away, and they chased it all the way into Pennsylvania.
Dang.
So they went like over 50 miles and they chased it. So I read that this scene inspired the scene from the 1977 film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but I also read that that a similar thing happened in Texas, and that was more publicized, so I think that it was probably the Texas one, but this Ohio one was significant enough that, these are 2 police officers. Like, they're officers of the law. They're literally doing their job. Like, it's not like they're drunk or anything like that. Like, they're just doing their job, and they chased it all the way into Pennsylvania. But they were discredited when they reported it back to, like, the military. They were discredited with their chase, and they were told that they were just chasing the planet Venus, which Venus is like one of the brighter things in the night sky. Right. But this is also the 60s where we don't have as much light pollution as we do today. Like, today I'd be like, oh, there's a lot of things. Like, it could have been a drone or
right.
Like,
that's just Tommy flying his new toy.
Right. Like, it is
trying to take videos of his neighbor undressing.
It is very weird to see like the local newspaper uses drones for like the 4th of July, like fireworks shows and stuff like that. So you see those in the sky and like you're like, what is that? And then you're like, oh, it's kind of alien technology. One of the investigating members is Major Hector Quintanilla, who you will just remember that name because he will be involved in the next episode when we talk about Project Blue Book. But yeah, Ohio's had several. I know in connection to like a previous episode, we talked about Mothman. There have been several. There are theories that Mothman might be an alien, and that he's just like an interworldly or dimensional being that's like trying to tell us about stuff, albeit in a spooky way.
Well, I mean, I don't think he's intentionally spooky. I think we just don't. We interpret.
We don't understand him. So, but yeah, there's people that think that he might be an alien. And usually, like I said, it's like you don't want to read a bunch of alien stories to you guys because a lot of them are very, very similar. Of like, I was driving at night and I literally saw like this thing fly in front of my car.
I was driving at night and my car suddenly stopped and wouldn't start again, and I saw something in the sky.
Yeah. And then
I couldn't remember anything after.
And then you get into like the Men in Black like theories and stuff like that, which is like about the government intimidating you into silence and stuff like that. But yeah, the other theory of this that like Garrett M. Graff talked about in The Atlantic is not only do we do a lot of military testing and we don't declassify that to civilians, but we also have made it very, very hard for scientists to like actually study anything dealing with UAP or UFOs or anything like that, because we have done such a good PR campaign. When I say we, I mean the military has done such a good PR campaign of like discrediting this type of scientific discovery. So, take what you will with that with a grain of salt. But yeah, Hangar 18 is supposed to be, again, where they keep all the alien stuff. They have referenced it, I think, like, so obviously they have a newer show that was on the History Channel of Project Blue Book, which, have you seen that?
I haven't watched it. It's scripted.
Right, it's scripted.
But it's like using...
real
referencing
names and
real
stuff.
people who existed and like alleged reports and things like that.
Yeah, so I watched like the first few episodes. This was pre-Tater Tot, so I had time to do that. And it like... I was expecting it because it's the History Channel, so I guess I was expecting something a little drier and not as fictional, but they were like really doubling down like, no, aliens and extraterrestrials exist, and the government was super covering it up. Like, that was definitely what we told like this scientist to do, just chalk everything up to weather balloons. So I just think it's a very interesting very interesting that that's the direction they went with that show. And yeah, I think it's also interesting that like we've had such a fascination and we've really pushed Roswell. And like, I'm just thinking now of that weird internet thing that went around in like 2020 about storming Roswell.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so confused why people I'm like, why? And they're like, we want to see the aliens. I'm like, but is that like it? That's all you want to do for Roswell? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, go to Wright-Pat, man. Yeah. That's where the aliens are at. They didn't store them they don't have enough room to store them in Roswell. Like, come on.
Or is that just what they told you to throw you off the trail because they have the cool aliens at Roswell? I love the like memes that came after that it was like people started posting them like a year later, and it was like the Internet Explorer logo on a plane, like, on my way to storm. It kills me.
I think that kind of covers a basic overview of Wright-Pat. Is there anything?
I have things to say that don't have to deal with aliens.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about the factual part of Wright-Pat that's been out.
I don't know how factual it is. I want to talk about ghost shit.
Oh. Oh, wait. Before we get into that, I will talk about, because I thought this was cool in like a military way for Ohio. And I say that with like a grain of salt. Wright-Pat was the home of the Dayton Agreement, which is in 1995, the President of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Do you want to take a crack at that name so I don't completely butcher it?
Oh boy. Ichibegovich.
Okay.
It's definitely Govich. I'm not real up on Bosnian pronunciations of the first half of that.
So the president of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the president of Croatia, and the president of Serbia all arrived at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to commence negotiations to end the Bosnian War, an ethnic conflict that by 1995 was between the Bosnia and Herzegovina's Bosniaks and the Croats, who had put aside their differences on one side versus Bosnia and Herzegovina's Serbs on the other side. American diplomat Richard Holbrooke led the negotiations. Eventually, an agreement was made to have Bosnia and Herzegovina have two internal entities, a Bosniak Croat Federation known as the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and a Serb territory known as Republika Srpska. So yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that like they were in the middle of like that. I do remember that going on, but I didn't realize that Wright-Patterson was like involved that way. So I was like, that's interesting. And I do like also after that, they talk about what they did for the COVID pandemic. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, we sent people to Detroit for a mobile like medic unit. I was like, well, that's cool too. I guess you should list that to detract from all your alien stuff.
Like, we do other stuff too that's not just space crap. We do stuff on Earth too.
I don't know why, but I was just picturing like Zoolander saying that. Like,
we're at Air Force Base for people who don't fly good. What is this, an Air Force Base for plants? You're rooted in the ground. We're like really, really ridiculously good looking. This is to make up for how little we did. I got the black lung pop during my Bloody Valentine. We only did it once.
Yeah. That's too bad because I say that like every day at work. Every day. And Buddy the elf coworker doesn't know that it's that.
I just want to show her the gasoline fight.
Oh, I just say it every time. And then I get told, I'm like I'll be choking on something or coughing because, you know, allergies and all that fun stuff. And I'll be like, I got the black lung pop. And then I get told, no, you don't. I'm like, are you a doctor? Do you know that? You don't have the black lung. I said, how do you know? I could have the black lung.
She's a time traveler and she used to work in the mines. Okay. So, as we mentioned earlier, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the land that is now the base, I mean, like, it encompasses a huge chunk of land.
I forgot to mention, I think I know where you're going with this. I forgot to mention one of those, a thing, but it's fine. I think you're going to talk about it, so.
I don't know if I am now. You threw me off.
Sorry. I'll let you keep going.
What are you going to talk about?
It's right next to an Adina mound, like burial mound.
Oh, no, that's not what I was going to say.
Oh, yeah. It's the property of Wright-Patterson is literally like if you go on that, like the Adina. So for those of you who are not fully aware of Ohio history, obviously we built on native land because we're colonizers. I say that as a white person.
Yeah.
And we are home to one of the greatest mound effigies in the world with the Great Serpent Mound.
I think we mentioned that before in a different episode.
But we're like, that's not the only mound in Ohio. It's just the biggest and most prominent. But at Wright-Patterson, there are an Adina burial mound that is like, they didn't build on it, but it's like right there, right by the Air Force. It's like they were like, build. Just kidding. I guess we'll leave that alone. It's kind of like if you look at any like burial mounds now, there's like one, I think closer to Columbus, where like they built a suburban like houses around like a neighborhood. So if you want to go build it, you're literally like parking in like this like very like upper crusty neighborhood. And I was just like, I kind of hate this. Feels Very disrespectful. So that's my little aside.
And as you're like saying that in my head, I just hear, and I'm proud to be an American, and like eagles screeching. No, so what I was getting at is that it was like a huge expanse of land. Now there's also a college, there's a university. Wright State is right off the edge of Wright-Patterson, and they are, over the like last like few decades, they've kind of tightened their affiliation with the Air Force Base. I know there's like scholarships you can get from the Air Force Base to go to that school. And because when they originally built the base, it was really off the grid. It was very isolated. So when they started expanding, they had to build these tunnels to run electrical wires and things like that to connect to other buildings.
Okay.
So those tunnels still remain. Like, students at Wright State can use them when it's like shitty outside. You can take the tunnels to get to and from class rather than having to walk through snow and stuff
I think I knew that,
on the surface
but I don't know
level.
why I knew that. But I did know that.
I have a picture.
Oh.
They're like nicely decorated in this picture. There's like maps and shit on the wall. So like that is a unique, weird kind of thing there. Some people have this like, you know, it's like a local legend type theory that they're like, oh, well, it's because during the Cold War, like we were a target for like Soviet bombs, so they had to like build a giant like bunker to escape nuclear blasts and radioactive fallout. But they were like, no, it's literally just because we had to run electrical wires, and that was the easiest way to do it and connect things. But also, there was a house already on the property that people had lived in for generations that the base purchased, and it still stands on the base. It is now known as the Arnold House for Hap Arnold, who is kind of a big deal in the military. Henry Harley, or Hap as he was called, Arnold, he had a lot of nicknames. He was also like Pewt, and
I thought you said puke.
No, Pewt, Pewt, and Benny, and the Chief, as well as Hap. He was he's one of the, I don't know if he is the only now, or if he is one of very few military individuals to hold the rank of general in two separate military branches. He was a general of the Army and a general of the Air Force.
Oh.
And he's like one of very few people to make that rank in the Air Force. He is kind of an aviation pioneer. He's the only U.S. Air Force general to hold a 5-star rank. He is the only officer to hold a 5-star rank in 2 different military services. So he's the only one to hold a 5-star rank in multiple branches of the U.S. military. He also was the founder of Project RAND, which is like one of the world's largest nonprofit global policy think tanks. And he was one of the founders of Pan Am World Airways, which doesn't exist anymore.
Oh.
But yeah, he learned how to fly from the Wright brothers. He was one of the first military pilots worldwide. He's one of the first 3 rated pilots. So that's like a skill assessment in the military. He's one of the first 3 rated pilots in the history of the U.S. Air Force. And he was actually scared of flying. That's why he took flying lessons to learn how to fly, to get over it. And that was during like the expansion of the air service during World War I. And then he was in World War II. He was like very into like tech research and advancement and development. He like oversaw the development of intercontinental bombers, jet fighters, radar, atomic warfare, unfortunately. And he moonlighted as a silent film stunt pilot. Which is where his nickname Happy came from, and then everyone shortened it to Hap.
Wait. Say this. He moonlighted as a
silent film stunt pilot in the early 1900s. So, like, if they needed, like, a pilot, and, like, they needed a plane for a silent film, like, he just, like, did that on the side as, like, a little hobby.
Just for S's and G's, man. I'm just gonna go, fly for Hollywood. NBD.
Right? So, he lived in this house on the base with his family. They had quite a few children. I can't remember exactly how many they had, but he and his wife and kids all lived there. And now they believe that the Arnold house is haunted. So,
By Hap?
not necessarily by Hap. I'll get into it. So, a lot of different commanders have lived in this house since then, but it's just kept the name because he's like the most famous one who's lived there.
Right.
And like if you run the marathon down there, like you run past it.
Yeah, the Air Force, Wright-Patterson hosts an annual marathon for the Air Force every year.
Yeah, and it's roughly like 8.5 miles into the marathon. You run past the Hap Arnold house. They actually had Ghost Hunters, the TV show from Sci-Fi, go and do an investigation there. And like I said earlier, I watched part of it and then, the internet snitched on itself and got it taken down. So I hope that wasn't my fault. But they had to get clearance from the Pentagon to be able to go and investigate there. And it wasn't like they were like, hey, can we come film there? Like, they reached out to Ghost Hunters and were like, hey, can you come do an investigation here? So that cracks me up that the U.S. military is like, hey, Sci-Fi, we think we have ghosts. Can you handle this?
Wait. Does ghosts? They don't get rid of the ghosts, right? They
don't.
They just rile them up, right?
They debunk. So if you're unfamiliar with Ghost Hunters, because I guess at this point it is it still exists, but with different people on the show. But at that time, the lead investigators were Jason Hawes and Grant Wilson, and they were plumbers. Like that was their main job. Like
that was their day job.
That's their day. Like that's their real job. And then they would work with the Atlantic Paranormal Society.
Okay.
And go and do this ghost hunting on the side. And so their plumbing experience led to them having a lot of knowledge and interaction and experience with like electromagnetic frequency in like houses where they're like, oh, well, you got like a shit ton of wiring right here. Like, of course you're getting EMF from that. And that's like why when you're in your basement, in your laundry room, where like all these electrical wires are running from, that you feel like someone's watching you and you get paranoid, because that's like a natural response the human body has to electromagnetic frequency. It's not always like, oh my God, it's haunted, there's a ghost. Sometimes it's just like, oh, you have electricity in your house and it's like freaking out your brain. So they would debunk a lot of things. Like they would go into houses and be like, no, like look at these, like I'm holding my EMF meter near where they're saying they always get this feeling they're being watched, but like they're like fuse boxes right here. Or like they would be like, I think it's more this than like a ghost or something like that.
Okay.
So they went, oh my God, what did I just do? It just like scrolled by itself. They went to Wright-Pat to investigate, and they met with like the PR department on base to start. They have several buildings that people reported seeing like apparitions, objects moving on their own, odd sounds. Like some of the PR offices were like that, and then also the Arnold house had.
Could it be aliens?
Maybe. So they did a tour of Building 70, which is where like the public relations offices are, and the Arnold house. And then there's also a building they go in where they would like test materials for like in-flight transport. So it's just like a big like warehousey type building with lots of like stuff coming and going on a daily basis that they're like testing. So a lot of activity in there. They usually did multiple night investigations. So on the first night they investigated the Arnold house. The stories in the house were that you could hear like children laughing, and you would hear footsteps on the stairs, but they most often heard noises like while they were in the bathroom.
Oh.
And like the one woman who worked there was saying like, I was in the downstairs bathroom and I kept hearing like people talking, and I was in the house by myself, and I thought, oh, I must have left my radio on upstairs. But then it just kept going, and she's like, this is going on entirely too long. Like, that's not my radio. And also, why does it sound like kids playing? So that was like her experience with it. They were like investigating, and Jason and Grant were sitting near where the bathroom is. Jason was actually sitting with like his back to the bathroom door, which, like, brave man.
Weird. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I had to think about that. I was like, wait.
And
How?
so they would often use these techniques where they would like essentially be like, we're gonna ask like yes or no questions. Can you knock once for yes or knock twice for no? And so they're sitting there like asking questions, and we're getting like very clear knocking sounds in response. And so they asked like, is there anyone here? And you heard a knock. And then they were like, is there more than just you here? And they got like a response again. And then they were like, well, let me start saying numbers and you knock when I hit the right number. And so it was this whatever was communicating with them said that there were 5 like entities that were in the house still.
Interesting.
Yeah. They were on the 2nd floor, and they were hearing noises in a room adjacent to where they were, and there was like nobody else in there. It was the 2 of them, and like they have stationary cameras that are just like pointed at them, so they set everything up and they show you setting everything up. And usually when they're investigating, it's like maybe Jay and Grant go like one way, and then like 2 other investigators will go on a different floor, and then you have 2 people sitting outside in a van like monitoring tech equipment. So like at most you have like one other group of people in a house, so it's a controlled environment.
Right.
Nobody's like walking around really, or they note the time so they can compare it.
Right.
And there's not like another person with a camera moving around. It's just like we set it up and it doesn't move now. So sounds in another room that there was like no explanation for it. They started hearing noises in the bathroom. So Jason goes in the bathroom to see, and there's like nothing he can figure out that it could have been. And again, he's a plumber, so he's like, I would know if it was the plumbing.
Right.
And he's like, sometimes people say you close the doors on your own in here. Could you close the door? And the door behind him closed on its own.
No, thank you.
And he went in and like tested it to see if it was just like, oh, did I like set it where it could have moved on its own when I came back out? And there was like no explanation for it. So that's spooky. Downstairs on the same night, the other investigators, it was like Kristen and oh god, I can't remember her name. Chris, maybe. They were downstairs doing EVP work, and they had an EMF meter, and were trying to get people to, they're people, trying to get entities to respond to them. And they heard like a little girl laughing.
No.
And we're like, are you laughing at us? And like it giggled again. Later that night, Jason set up a flashlight, and he had it where it was like almost turned on, but was not like a full click to on. And he set it on the ground. So he's like, you won't have to use a whole lot of energy, but can you make that flashlight turn on? And it turned on, and their EMF like went up. They were doing work downstairs as well with like candlesticks, and we're like, hey, can you like go over by the candle? And the EMF meter went from like low to high and then back down to low, like something was moving past it. So they did have a lot of activity when they were in there.
Yeah.
I wish I could have finished it to see what their other findings were. But yeah, that is apparently haunted. And then the building where they do all the testing of materials, there's like a huge wall of like it looked like steel like beams that it's like nailed into the wall, and they stack them up there. And they're like later in the evening, when there wasn't like a whole lot going on and there was definitely no one in that room, people in an adjacent room heard a huge crash that sounded like it just ripped out of the wall and like hit the ground, and they went running in, and it was perfectly fine and there was like nothing knocked over.
Oh.
One of the PR department people was leaving their offices at night, and she was the last one out because that's like how it rolls. She's always the last one out. She has her like system. I walk through, I turn off the lights just out of habit. I always go, is there anybody else here? Fully knowing there's nobody else there. And
listen, if we start doing that closing at
no,
the library,
I told you, I run from the bathroom hallway already. I'm not going to start asking it to talk to me. No. So she turned off the lights. She called out like, is there anybody here? And like heard a noise and went back to check just to make sure, and there wasn't anybody else there. And then she went out, and as she went outside and had locked up the doors and was walking away, she looked back at the front doors which have these windows, and she saw a woman standing there in like old-timey clothing. Yeah, and she has heard a woman call her name in that building before. What? So she thinks, thinks she saw. And I listen again. I didn't get my questions answered about who these people are.
Listen, if our library ghost starts calling our names or like pulls books out by like, I don't know, like with the like a title with Beth in it, I'm gonna be like, I'm going home now. I'm good. We're done.
And so
that's too spooky for me.
Yeah. And so they went down in the basement of the house just to like verify, like there's no other explanation for EMF readings. And they got nothing in the basement. So it was all just like isolated to those spots where they saw it.
Interesting.
They investigated building 70 the next night. They did EVP work in that warehouse where they heard the big crash. Jason saw a black shadow. Like he had like very little light in that room, and it was like something moved in front of it. He stood at one end of the room, Grant stood at the other, and like Grant then saw a light, like something blocked the light, but Jason didn't see it that time. They heard footsteps and tapping. Jason asked, if you want us to leave, can you tap twice? And then it tapped twice. So he's like, well, shit, I guess we have to go then. Steve and Dave, who were two other investigators, were in the office, and they were hearing like sounds that they couldn't explain. Chris and Kristen heard similar sounds in the warehouse, but again, they couldn't figure out what it was. They like took a day off in their investigation to get like a special tour of a C-5 cargo plane while they were there. And like the one guy, Steve, hates flying. Like when they do investigations, he drives when everybody else has to get on a plane. And even he like went in just like, what else am I gonna have like a chance to do this? And they started like going over the video footage and recordings that they were taking. They caught like several sounds on tape. And they also got a thermal image that at like when it first happened, they were like, oh man, like what, like that is like a person, like why is it so high on the thermal imaging? And they didn't see anybody there. And then later they were like, oh no, like this is Roger, this is their sound guy. So they debunked that.
I was gonna say it's an alien. He's just walking around.
They got the laughter that the girls heard on tape. And then at the end of their investigations, they always sit down with like whoever asked them to investigate, and they review their findings. So they sat down, they explained how they like what their process is, how they debunk things, and like the women who had given them the initial tour were both just like, yeah, vindication, because like you have it on tape now what I've experienced. The flashlight thing like really was like, oh man, that's awesome. And the like tapping in response. The woman who initially took them on the tour was like, oh, there's 5 entities in the Arnold house. No, thank you. I will stay in building 7 in the PR department. I do not want to go work there. And like, they don't get the vibe that any of these entities are malevolent, but they're like, you essentially built an Air Force base around a haunted house. Like, what did you think was gonna happen? So
you built an Air Force base around a haunted house close to a ancient
not to be
Native
tropey,
American
but near a Native American burial ground.
On top of that, you are hosting and hiding extraterrestrial matter. What do you think is going to happen? You're really setting yourself up for a terrible horror movie waiting to happen, which they did make a horror movie called Hangar 18.
Yes.
Based on
in like the 80s.
Yes,
yeah.
based on Hangar 18.
So they did not investigate the Air Force Museum. They just investigated like the house in Building 70. But there are claims that the museum is also haunted. Chris Woodyard, who wrote a Haunted Ohio book.
Yeah, I have a lot of his books.
Said that my notes might be wrong then, because they refer to Chris as a she.
Oh.
But
maybe Chris is a she. I don't know. I assumed it was a he, but
I don't know. But they say that as they like walk around the museum trying to read the information plaques next to things, they feel that they're like being followed. And their belief is that this is like the airmen who are still kind of attached to their planes. Because you think about it, you used to see them like paint like the sides of their planes.
Right.
Like, it's very like, this is my gun, there are many like it, but this one is mine.
Right.
Like mentality. It's my plane, it's my girl. So yeah, why wouldn't you still be attached to that in the afterlife? And they do have like a lot of decommissioned planes and air vehicles there.
Right. Special the JFK one,
yes.
Special Air Force. Like they decommissioned that one because one, like it toted a dead president, but two, like, could you just, I don't know. I feel like I would be creeped out going and like getting by it, going in it type of thing. Cause I'm just like, that's what a private, I mean, I know there's pictures and stuff from inside the plane. Cause, you got, what's his name? Lyndon.
Yeah.
Like take an oath on
next
the plane.
To poor Jackie.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have the Hopalong, which is a Sikorsky UH-19B, and it was used to medevac troops in Korea and Vietnam. The museum staff say that they have seen a pilot in the seat, like flipping switches before, and they get the sense that he's still trying to get home.
Oh, no.
And the seat is actually still stained with the pilot's blood.
Oh, God.
They have the Boxcar, which is a B-19 that dropped the Fat Man atomic bomb on Nagasaki. And they say that they see a young Japanese boy that comes out at night around that plane. I know, these are awful.
I don't, sorry listeners, you can't see my face, but it's not a good face right now.
I'm honestly, with that, I am surprised there is not more like tied to that plane. The Black Mariah is a Sikorsky CH-3E helicopter transport used for classified missions. It's in the museum. It has a shit ton of bullet holes in it, and people say that you can hear moans and voices of the troops it carried home.
Jesus.
They have parts of the Lady Be Good B-24 there that disappeared during a bombing run on Italy that are said to rearrange themselves.
You imagine just coming in for your shift and and they're just like and you're just like, it's just Tuesday.
Right. It's like this Lego kit was meant to be a helicopter, but it has been rearranged into a daisy flower. Like, it's stacked up weird or something.
Oh, God. It would be like coming into the library and seeing the books, like, which, I mean, we definitely had books like fallen out of like aisles and stuff like that, but like definitely coming in and seeing like do you remember our old shelver who would cut, like, I would leave a room and they would like build stuff out of random stuff. Like they would put like a teapot and like a box, like a teapot and a box, and then like a piece of paper, and
if
then
I
like
hadn't seen them building it, it would have felt very like that scene in Poltergeist where the chairs are all stacked.
Yes. And always to me, like
Yes.
I would walk out of the room, I'd come back into like the meeting room, and I'd be like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah. They there is a POW exhibit at the museum, which people say they feel like an inexplicable sense of dread there, but I also would say it's a POW exhibit. Like, you should probably feel some kind of way about it. So is that a haunting, or is that just like human nature?
Well, according to the one psychic that visited our library, she said in one of her presentations that certain things just evoke and kind of keep that astral energy. So it would make sense that if it's a prisoner of war exhibit, and like these are things that prisoners of war, like I'm not sure what's in the exhibit, but like if they're associated with that and they've been through that like they're going to retain that, because it's like negative energy. They're going to retain that negative energy.
Yeah. There are different types of hauntings. There's like, that's kind of a residual type of haunting where it's like, you know, that's like the stuff where it's like, oh, I watched a woman walk through a wall where there was nothing there. It's like, well, did there used to be a different floor plan in that building? Like, they're just tracing the same path. This doesn't interact with people. And then there's like intelligent hauntings that seem to interact with people, which is like, you know,
more like the Arnold house.
Right. But so like people report getting this, as they quote, sick dread as they approach the POW exhibit. Some airmen say that ghosts show up for work and walk in the doors and open lockers and go into the break room.
Oh. Some
people have reported seeing people in Nazi uniforms showing up in the World War II exhibit.
Oh, that's terrifying. And also, if I ever come back as a ghost and I'm showing up to clock into work, I'm going to be so pissed.
Right. I would be like, excuse me, that's my workstation. Can you get out? Thanks.
Get out of my chair.
My fucking chair. My broken fucking chair. All right. They also have Strawberry Bitch.
Oh.
Which is one of the planes at the museum.
Did not know where you were going to go with that. Oh, yeah.
So Strawberry Bitch houses the only malevolent spirit there.
Well, you know, with a name like that, I would be a little feisty too.
There's reports of rattles and clanks, shadowy figures, and strange lights. And a former janitor claims a ghost from the B-24D slapped him in the face.
What were you doing, janitor?
I don't know. So yeah, that is I think there's like footsteps and electronics turning on in different buildings. Building 219 was a former hospital that's now an office. They claim that there were like children running and playing, and they interrupted a judge advocate general's meeting in the basement, which used to be the morgue. The doors on the third floor like all slammed shut at the same time once. But that is like the majority, I think, I covered of the ghostly aspects of Wright-Pat.
I'll be honest with you, when we were doing research, like I didn't even think to look up like what else is spooky about it. I was like, no, all you need to know is aliens. But no, now I'm like, we're covering all the bases at this military base. We got your ghosts, we got your aliens.
It's got aliens. It's got anal probes. It's got ghosts. It's got bitch slaps from Strawberry Bitch. It's got doors slamming. It's got Dan Cortese.
I mean, I want to visit now. Where is the internet memes of I would laugh so hard, but also be mildly horrified if for some reason some weird faction of internet Reddit bros found this podcast episode and they're like, 2024, we're repeating 2020. Let's storm Wright-Pat instead of Roswell. And I'll just be like, Oh God. Oh God. Please don't like blacklist me as like a person.
Beth's on the no-fly list forever.
Forever. Like, please don't. We didn't start the fire. We're just reporting what we've read.
Listen, I didn't say shit about the aliens. I'm just talking about the ghosts. You yell at Beth. You leave me out of this.
Oh God.
I'm ride or die until I can't get on a plane to take a vacation, and then you're on your own.
I would like laugh so hard if suddenly that just became like the trending thing, like on the internet, much like the Roswell thing. I'd be like, good God.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, before I forget, we have for ghost sightings, we rank number 3 in the United States for ghost sightings.
Hell yeah.
And this was as of, I think this was like 2019 or 2020. I think they do this yearly. There had been 2,948 recorded sightings of ghosts in Ohio. And then for UFO sightings, they said we ranked number 8 with 4,371 recorded sightings, which is far more than the ghost sightings, which is impressive.
Yeah.
But California is the faraway leader with 15,901 sightings, and Florida's number 2 with 8,090.
Yeah, well,
It's Florida. So then, according to, I'm not sure who they were going by. A study by betmichigan.com. So, take it with a grain of salt. They say that while Ohio has like ranks pretty high for these encounters, they're saying it's only at number 21 when it comes to actual chances of seeing either at 0.062%. Maine comes in at first, which I don't understand.
It's because Stephen King's there.
Yeah, that's actually...
Stephen King also lives in Florida, so...
Could there be a correlation?
Is Stephen King an alien?
Oh my
I
God.
don't know.
That would actually explain some
Tabby,
things.
make me some more of those space pancakes. These ones have too many air holes in them.
I was going to say, ending on like a factual note, so they're in between bosses right now at the Air Force Base. So it's the Air Force.
Let me type up my resume.
It's commanded by Colonel Travis W. Pond on an interim basis due to the removal of Colonel Christopher B. Meeker, who was relieved due to a loss of confidence in his ability to lead. I just thought that was interesting.
That is scary. What's going on there?
Well, I'm also, I don't have like the reference notes, but I'm also thinking, not too long ago, under a former presidency, how many things did we have things get stripped of, and how many people that were cabinet members just lose their jobs overnight?
Yeah, you just made my brain do that thing where I was like, oh, that other thing that's connected to this. So like I said, I have a connection to like the US military. I'm not going to go deep into thoughts on it either way, but through both my family and past relationships. So like I'm very aware of like the military balls that they have every year, and like the Marine Corps ball is like, it's like a big deal.
Right.
And you have to pay like a shit ton to be able to go. But the Space Force ball just happened recently.
Oh.
And here's the thing. I'm sorry if this is hurting anyone's feelings, but the fact that the Space Force exists is forever hysterical to me.
Yeah.
Also, that show on Netflix that had Steve Carell, it is so good. Oh. It's so good. It's so stupidly funny. Like, I laughed at every episode. But just the fact that the Space Force had their military ball recently, and I saw TikToks from it, is very entertaining. In the video, they were like 3 people in the background of this girl dancing by herself in a gown doing like a TikTok dance, and everyone's like, oh my god, Space Force only had like 4 people show up to their ball, and she's like, this was the end of the night, there were at least 800 people there.
Oh, okay.
Were they aliens? Here's the thing, if the aliens are allowed to go to the Space Force ball, I want to go. I want to do like the wobble with a gray.
Wobble? Do they wobble at the like? Are the Space Force military? Are like the military balls? Are they like? Are you doing like actual? I thought it was like ballroom dancing. It's not. It's like a
dancing. It's like going to like a wedding, like a classy wedding dancing. Like, you know, you have to follow your rules of like, you know, decorum, like
right.
You go in your dress uniform, so like there are things you can and can't do when you're in your dress uniform. This is a fun fact, if you're not of the military, people, this is why like posing with your like spouse who's in their military dress always looks like really uncomfortable, because you're like not allowed to hold hands.
Oh.
And so like, yeah, so there's like rules with things
that
you're allowed to do in uniform. And so like obviously you can't be like grinding on each other like you would at like our high school. Oh, so it's not like our high school. And you have to wear like a certain standard, like there are dress codes. So like women have to wear like ball gowns, like formal attire. Mm-hmm. There's rules for like what kind of slits you can have and like the cut of the dress. I don't think you're allowed to wear strapless dresses. I think they have to have straps or sleeves. Or you have to wear like a little fancy dress over it. So yeah, so there's like rules for it, and she was doing like some weird TikTok dance, and I was like, I am surprised she was allowed to do that, honestly, because she was dropping it.
Oh, but I just read they're calling it now when you drop it Meg the Stallion knees, where I was like, boy, and I'm like, listen, good for Meg the Stallion though.
We love you, Meg.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. So ending on, so yeah, Wright-Patterson, you can visit there if you want to. You know, if you believe there's at least spooky stuff happening that cannot be explained. There might be alien stuff that they've kind of explained but not really explained. But otherwise, if you're into military history, or it's like not a bad place to go. And I would say, ending on the note of like space aliens and the Space Force, according to one scientist, they think that if aliens do exist and they're here on Earth, they probably look a lot like us, then they blend in. That's one scientist's theory.
I just also feel like here's my reasoning. All right, no one asked for this. If we have not developed the technology to go to other like solar systems and galaxies and find intelligent life, and they have found that to get here, they're clearly far more advanced than us technologically, which makes me feel like they probably have, you know, methods to like cloak themselves and blend in. But this is also where you get like the theories of like black-eyed kids, where it's like, I studied human behavior, but I didn't get it quite right, which is also why I think my cat's an alien, because he like is almost cat-like, but then he doesn't quite get it right. So it's like, I watched one video about cats, I got this, and then he gets here and he does something that like cats shouldn't do, and he's like, oh, I don't think I was supposed to do that.
Yeah, according to this Simon Conway Morris, who's an evolutionary biologist at Cambridge, he says that it's a good chance that intelligent extraterrestrial life will look a lot like us. Different species independently evolve in similar patterns, he argued, in the Runes of Evolution, and would likely do the same on other planets. The things which we regard as most important, he said in an interview, are cognitive sophistication, large brains, intelligence, tool-making are also convergent. If there are other planets that look a lot like planet Earth, and the Kepler spacecraft is discovering that there are, then the likelihood of human-like extraterrestrial intelligence on those planets isn't a huge stretch. If the outcomes of evolution are at least broadly predictable, Morris said, then what applies on Earth will apply across the Milky Way and beyond. maybe at Wright-Patterson there are aliens working in the military, and they're just like, what do you know that we know that you don't know that we know, or something? I don't know, you know?
They don't know that we know that they know that we don't know that they know that we know that they don't know.
Yeah. Maybe. Listen, I'm not a part of the military at all. I have no skin in this game. Please, again, don't come for me and blacklist me off of
I just
flying.
remember the last president, when they took office, I got really sad because I was just like, I just feel like at that point, if the clearance was there for aliens being real, they would have fucking blabbed so fast. And like, we didn't hear anything. And I was just like, man, it's all fake. But now I'm just like, you didn't trust him enough to give him the info. Got it.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm picking up from what's being thrown down. Yeah, because now you wouldn't have a whistleblower coming in front of Congress and be like, yeah, intelligent life, extraterrestrials are real.
Listen, not to get too tinfoil hat here, but I also feel like if they're telling us this and it's like, yeah, it's real, here's a taste. It's real. There you go. Are you satisfied? There's way more that they're not telling us.
Yeah, I believe that for sure.
Like freaking, Will Smith and his flashy thing are going around cleaning up messes.
Yep. I was so sad that like that was based off of like comic books, and I was like, how much of this is, and if you ever try to Google Men in Black on the internet, you're not going to get very far, because you either get like, you're getting really close to like the dark part of the internet, or you're getting to like websites that don't look legit, and you're just like,
it's like an Angel Fire website from 1997.
And I'm just like, I don't want to get a virus on the computer. So I'm like, but I feel like this is also being set up this way. Wikipedia, why don't you have anything on Men in Black? Weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you got a whole thing on Project Blue Book. So I'll leave it at that. We'll catch you next time with Project Blue Book. We'll dive more into some alien conspiracies and whatnot. Holy crap, this is 2 hours. How? Anyways, thank you guys for listening to us on this strange and unusual journey, or as my favorite Dale Cooper says, a journey both wonderful and strange. And we'll catch you guys next time. We'll dive deeper into some alien studies. We're going to talk about Project Blue Book. We're going to talk about some other fun stuff. I'm sure there's going to be a couple of sides in there. And I just want to say thanks again to our spooky sponsor.
Do you think I'm spooky? Fox Mulder.
And hope you guys have a good rest of your day, rest of your Sunday. And, if you see any UFOs, I guess let Cups know. All right.
Keep it to yourself. They're going to run you off the grid.
Stay spooky, friends.